sending data, Facebook's online, everything's coming online. If you're out there on Facebook, you're online now, waiting for YouTube and Twitch. Just gotta get YouTube's online, just waiting for Twitch now. Restream still. I don't know, Restream. You might have my might be back and you might not. I just don't know right now. We're still not on Twitch. That's okay. We're not on Twitch. That's just the way it's got to be this morning, I guess. We'll deal with that later, I guess. No Twitch yet this morning. Good morning, and welcome to your Tuesday morning Cup of Cyber. I guess most of us by noon will be in Hump Day, Wednesday, because it's short weeks for most folks. Most folks in the United States are going to have Friday off. It's a celebration of the 4th of July, Independence Day, that kind of great stuff. Good morning, Paul. Always good to see you in the morning. I think consistently the first one here, first one checking in, first one to come see us. Our Illy coffee today is in what I'm calling the backwards cup. This is the my Deadpool cup. It goes with the Deadpool shirt, of course. This side says Deadpool, but I'm a fan of the other side. I like just the big logo. So I kind of wish they would have printed it backwards. So first world problems for sure. As we get going this morning. Hopefully you're doing well out there. Hopefully your week is going good. It's crazy everywhere, right? Not a terrible day in the news. Obviously, we say the same old trends. COVID-19 is the phishing exploit of choice. Ransomware is everywhere. So maybe that'll be our new jingle. Ransomware is everywhere. That's the way of the world anymore. Everywhere you go, we have to be aware of the ransomware. So if you're hanging out, I guess I'll say it up front, I'll say it in the back. Like, subscribe, hit the subscribe if you haven't subscribed. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love you to hit that bell over there too so you can be notified every single time we go live. As you know, if you were here yesterday, you know July is going to be jam-packed with just all kinds of stuff. RMF class starts, the Security Plus class starts, the IT Fundamentals Plus class starts. They all start on July 20th. They'll be instructor paced this first round. And the reason we do that is at the end of every domain, we'll do a live session with the students from that course to make sure you're understanding everything, make sure everything makes sense, make sure that everything's going the way that you want to. You can pre-register between the 1st and midnight of the 19th for 25% off. That first group is the only group, the group from the 1st to the 20th is the only group that will get the instructor interaction courses, the live online courses. After that, it'll be totally self-paced, totally online, totally self-driven training. So it's good and bad. If you want to have input into the course, if you want to have the live interactions where we meet after every domain to talk about what's going on, you want to be in on this first group. In addition, it's going to be 25% off. So, and like I said yesterday, if you don't have the money, just watch the videos on YouTube. That's the same. It's going to be the extras. You get the extras in the class that we can't give you. We just can't give you on YouTube because the way the platform is built. We can't do interactive sessions. We can't do, one of the things we do in the training session is the video will play, like we'll talk about something like encryption, it'll play, and then you'll get a knowledge check right in the video to make sure you understand, and you can go back. It's cool the way that stuff's put together, but that's just the sales pitch. We got to do that. We got to try to keep the channel moving along. But my philosophy. My philosophy: if you don't have money for the training, we still want to put the content out there. You're just gonna have to work a little bit harder at it. So we talked about yesterday. So let's do the intro, and then we'll get to the news. It's good to see. Yes, we have the Twitch user out there. I'm not sure who's on Twitch. I'd love to see a comment. Twitch is still a platform we're still working through. I hope it goes well. So let's get set up and talking about the news. I got to throw this one over on that screen and bring the news up so we can stay on track with what the heck we're talking about, right? So first up in the news, Cardplanet. If you know anything about this digital underground, this dark underground, the dark web, there was a place out there called Cardplanet. The operator of Cardplanet was caught. They figured out who it was. They caught him, and he's been sentenced to 9 years in jail and prison for stealing credit cards. They say he's responsible for $20 million in fraudulent purchases. I would bet it's more than that. I'd bet more than that. He's responsible for carding, a carding website where you could go and buy credit cards. You could sell and buy credit cards. Cardplanet sold hundreds of thousands of debit, credit, and credit card numbers, mostly from U.S. citizens. Obviously, some nations are just more prone to this stuff. We are a digital country. We love to buy stuff on the old Amazon, and it's hard to say how these credit card numbers ended up in Cardplanet's databases, skimming locally, breaches of databases from the credit card companies, breaches from the transaction middleware folks. There's a ton of ways that your data could get in there. DOJ added that Burkhoff, this guy's name, probably give the guy's name, right? So Alexei Burkhoff is the guy's name. He's one that ran the site. He also ran an elite invite-only club where you had to pay $5,000 to get access, and this is where you could broker, you could buy and sell PII and different type of credit card information. You also had to be vetted by 2 or 3 different members that he trusted, Burkhoff trusted. So he's got captured, tracked down at the Ben Gurion, hopefully I'm saying that right, airport near Tel Aviv in December 2015. Big old long process to get him to the United States. Finally got him here in 2019. In January, he pleaded guilty to 1 count of access to device fraud and 1 count of conspiracy to commit access device fraud, identity theft, computer intrusions, wire fraud, and money laundering. Now, because he's caught doesn't mean that these things went away. There's a ton of other sites out there on the dark web that are selling cards and selling PII. It's everywhere, and we have to protect ourselves. And the Alex rule is how do we protect ourselves in these cases? And this is hard. Your credit card information is hard. Your PII is hard to protect because we're giving it to other people. And we give it to other people and we trust them to protect it. And as we've seen in the past, that's not always the case. There have been so many credit card breaches, so many database breaches that contain PII, from government to commercial organizations. My PII is probably been breached 8 times by different places, from OPM to Target or the VA. It's crazy how many places we put our PII, and those folks sometimes just don't protect it correctly. So really, the Alex rule is on this one, monitor things like your credit score. You can get all kinds of free ways to monitor your credit score. I think there's a U.S. law now that you can get access to your credit score. Once a year you can download all 3 of the reports. I don't think that's enough, though. I don't think checking it once a year is enough. Obviously, there's pay sites. You can go and pay for some of these sites to watch your credit score, watch your PII. Some of the malware protection companies now, like Symantec or Norton, they'll bundle in protection for your PII. They'll look for your PII on the dark web. They do some dark web searches for, I'm trying to do air quotes there, dark web searches for your PII. You can get things like Credit Karma. You can go to places like Mint. Your bank may even have the ability to pull your credit report, do a soft credit report pull, pretty much whenever you want it, and keep track of what's going on. Obviously, the pay services are going to be a little stronger, but you're going to have to pay for them. So I don't know your situation with what you can afford, but if you can't afford anything, you can sign up to one of the places like Credit Karma and keep track of your financial information. Keep track of that information, because that's how the only way you're going to protect yourself from this. So, so bottom line for this guy was responsible for at least 20 million in fraudulent purchases. He was personally running this carding site on the dark web, and Alexei Burkhoff is his name. His name. Oh, if you're playing at home, and you want to have that for your news of the day as you go along. The Senate is also in the news, and this goes back to the story we talked about. I think it was yesterday or last week. We talked about the new cyber czar being put in place at the White House. It must have been Friday last week, I think. So a group of Senate Democrats on Monday introduced a measure that would strengthen the cybersecurity protections for the U.S. states vulnerable to malicious cyber attacks as part of the annual National Defense Authorization Act, or the NDAA. This is from the Hill. So the Senate version of the 2021 NDAA would fund a cybersecurity coordinator for every state that would be responsible for working with all levels of government to prevent and respond to escalating cyber attacks on schools, hospitals, and other groups. The amendment was introduced by Senators Hassan, Corwin, Peters, Portman, and is based on previous legislation introduced by senators in January. Now, this is a little bit strange to me. So this is part of the Defense Authorization Act. The Senate Armed Services Committee approved the defense spending bill earlier this month. And really, this another thing this act does, this act they're trying to get into, this bill they're trying to get into the act, is it expands the use of the state National Guard to respond to cybersecurity attacks. And this draws, according to the committee, it says, draws clear lines of communication and understanding of what federal resources are available for vulnerable states and local governments. Peters goes on to say, bad actors will always target the path of least resistance, and that's why we must boost cybersecurity at all levels of the government. And I think state and local sometimes has been left out in the past in these things. So Portman adds to this, cybersecurity for state and local governments is just as important as federal cybersecurity, and frequently they lack the resources and technical know-how and situational awareness to secure their systems and respond in the event of an attack. So it's a bipartisan bill that's going forward to add this on to the National Defense Authorization Act for funding for the DoD. It expands the role of the National Guard, and we think about that article we talked about on Friday. We talked about the creation of the White House Cybersecurity Czar, and I think Mike maybe had a point that, why don't we use Cyber-Recon, Cyber Command, to kind of run this. And it was really that kind of, we talked about that separation of the defense and the civil part of the government. I don't know if we call them civil, but separating those out. But now we look at this part of the NDAA is really drawing the states and the local governments into that Cyber-Con chain. If we're talking about the National Guard coming in to help, we're talking about this being part of the NDAA. This is definitely aligning the states and the local governments with Cyber Command, which it seems to go counter to the other legislation that's creating the Cyber Czar that's going to be a member of the White House. So how they link those two together, I'm interested to see how they link these two organizations together, because it would really be interesting to see if that CyberZar somehow was connected to Cyber Command, and then it all flowed down to the state and local governments. It was all nice and clean, but I'm afraid. I'm just afraid that's not going to happen. I'm afraid we're going to have this disjointed and uncoordinated cyber response, and that doesn't help anyone. More to follow. We'll see how this goes. I think important thing here is it's important to see that money's being added to the state and local governments to help defend against these cyber attacks. They're not going anywhere. They will just continue to rise. So that's what's going on in the Senate. So that's not a bad thing. Child safety, child protection online has always been an important thing to me. I've got kids. They're adults now, but they're about to have children of their own. But there's children that are exploited all the time on the internet, on the interweb. So we really have to find ways to stop this. And COPA, when we'll talk about COPA a little bit more, was put in place to try to force software manufacturers and online services to try to protect kids, right? So University of Dallas, or University of Texas at Dallas study of 100 mobile apps for kids, so these were mobile apps that were specifically developed for children, found that 72 violated federal law aimed at protecting children's privacy online. Guys, that's crazy numbers when we have this law. So what they did is they looked at a study and developed a tool that could determine whether an Android game or other mobile app complies with the Federal Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPA, and found that these 72 of 100 they checked, right? So it could be. I'm sure it's far more than this. And they focused on Android, and it was probably easier to focus on Android because they could get into the store easier. I'm interested to see how many of these are on Apple devices, because I'm imagining that more children use Apple than Android, but I could be. I'm probably wrong there. You can tell me if I'm wrong. I guess a lot of the lower end tablets are probably Android based. So research introduced a test they called COPA tracking by checking hardware level activity, or CHOPCHA tool in the study. The tool was 99% accurate. Researchers continued to improve the technology, which they plan to make available for download at no cost. I wish I was never wrong. But thank you, Alex. So these games and other apps that violate COPA, of course, they increase the risk of children becoming exploited in any number of ways. There's extra risk now because we're under this COVID pandemic where a lot of people are home, a lot of kids aren't going to school, and they're probably spending a lot more time on tablets, on web applications. So Basso, one of the researchers, one of the doctors that conducted this study at the University of Texas, says, suppose the app collects information showing that there's a child on Preston Road in Plano, Texas, downloading the app. A trafficker could potentially get the user's email ID and geographic location and try to kidnap the child. It's really, really scary, and I agree with him. Apps can access all kinds of personal information on your mobile device, your phone, your tablet, whatever, including names, email addresses, phone numbers, location, audio and visual recordings, unique identifiers such as the International Mobile Equipment ID, or IMEI, or the Media Access Control, or MAC address of Android and Android Advertising ID. Basso goes on to say, when you download an app, it can access a lot of information on your cell phone. You have to keep in mind that all this information can be collected by these apps and sent to third parties, and what they do with it, you don't know. They can pretty much do anything they want. We should be careful about this. So obviously, as a parent, as a guardian, a grandparent, whoever is watching the children when they're using these devices. Be mindful of what they're downloading. I'm going to start calling this the Alex Law. And the why. What does the app target? The why is it? Why does the app target the minors? That. I guess Alex's question, why are these apps targeting minors? I think, in my mind, it's an unfortunate byproduct. They built the app. The app is targeting children because there's that right now, especially there's a captive audience. There's a group of children that are kind of bored right now. They are stuck at home. They don't have anything to do. These apps target children because they'll have in-stream marketing, the ability to buy things within the app, and that's where they're making their money. They're making their money by targeting children. Their children's games, children's applications. The problem is they didn't comply with COPPA. They didn't do the things like every morning when I broadcast to YouTube. And I don't know if you guys have ever created a YouTube live stream or YouTube video, but you have to go in and you say, is this video targeted towards children? Yes or no? And then there's another question: if you don't target children, which obviously these don't target children, do you want to block it from folks that are under 19 years old, right? So the way COPPA says is anytime you use an app or anytime you get a game online and the person that's using it is under 13, you have to have parental consent. And that's the why is these folks are just they're creating a game, they're trying to make revenue off the game, and the target of the game, the folks that will be using it, is children, right? Yeah. Yeah, and Alex, you had a great point. Let me put that back up there. I probably took it down too soon. One thing we don't think about, there's a lot of in-game purchases you can buy. I remember reading an article quite a while ago on Candy Crush when Candy Crush came out and it was big. It was making it was a free game, free app you could download, $900,000 a day in in-game purchases. That's a crazy amount of money for a game that's essentially Tetris reimagined. Alex has a great point right here. There's that data they capture, they can sell it as well. Because in that EULA, which I hardly ever read, and I should, I know I'm wrong. You guys always read that. But kids aren't reading that EULA, that end user agreement license. So when in there somewhere, it's probably something that says, we're going to sell your information to a third party. And that's money generated by the application as well, which is a great point, Alex. Thank you. So obviously, if you are, how to protect against this, know what children are doing online. If they're, for whatever reason, that you're responsible for these children. If you're watching them, if you're the grandparent, if you're the parent, if you're the guardian, whatever reason, if you're responsible for these children and you're giving them a computing device, whatever it is, a computer, a laptop, a phone, a cell phone, a tablet, whatever you're giving them, make sure you know what they're downloading and block their ability to load their own stuff. Make sure they're coming to you to get the stuff loaded. And here's the hard part. When you see the game or the app they want to download, you got to read that EULA. You got to see, does it comply with some of this? These guys at the University of Texas, hopefully they'll make this not only an Android app, but an iPhone app. And they're going to make it available for free for anyone to download. And then you can check your apps to see if they comply with COPPA or not. To me, this is really important. It's an important thing. You got to protect the kids. Kids don't pay attention to what they're doing online. And it can be, probably in a lot of cases, can be a very, very bad thing. Lovino's in the know. Lenovo, not Lovino. Lenovo is in the news as well. There's a hacker gang, and I'm going to put air quotes around this gang because they're not, a targeted gang. They're more a hacker group, but they're targeting Lovino NAS devices and they're asking for ransom. So the group that's signing this is Cloud Security. It's not really even leet speak how they wrote their name. I don't know, upper and lower case, camel case or whatever. So this Cloud Security hacker group is leaving ransom notes on old Lovino EMC NAS devices, right? And Lovino hasn't made NAS devices in a while. These are all old. iOmega, same thing. If the old iOmega devices. So this hacker group going by the name of Cloud Security is breaking into old Lovino or iOmega network attached storage devices or NAS devices, and then wiping the files on the NAS devices and leaving behind a ransom note asking the users, the owners, to pay between $200 and $275 to get their data back. It's been going on for about a month, according to Bitcoin Abuse, the Bitcoin Abuse web portal. And then ZDNet wrote this article up, and they did a scan using Shodan, and I don't think Mike's on today, but Mike's a big fan of Shodan. Just the scan that ZDNet did for the article showed around 1,000 devices out there that were broadcasting their information to the internet, and their device content was not encrypted. Nice. Good morning. Good to see you. So totally unsecure. So we've got a couple things going on here right now. So you got the NAS device. You're putting all your information on there, or a lot of information on there. You have it connected to where it's available, accessible from the internet, and the data is not protected, and it's not encrypted, right? I guess encrypted is protected. It's not. There's no access control, and there's no protections on it for encryption. So what these guys are doing, this group, is going in there. They're leaving this cloud at mail2pay.com, and they're just leaving this note on the ZDNet. You can check the article out in the show notes. There's a copy of one of the ransom notes they left behind. The problem, of course, with a lot of these guys, these guys are not. This is not a ransomware attack. This is an exploitation attack, because what these guys are doing is they're just deleting the files. There is no encryption. They haven't locked them up. They haven't backed them up to somewhere else. They deleted them. They're gone. So if you pay the money to these folks, you're not getting your information back. Yeah, Shodan is cool. Shodan is pretty cool. We need to talk about that one morning. Not a terrible tool to use. So this looks like an attack that happened last year. The email addresses have been changed. The ransom note has been changed. It looks like it's from the same people. And these folks, it's just not, again, I think yesterday we talked about one of these attacks. Last week we talked about these attacks. These are not the most technical attackers we're talking about here. They're not the most technical folks. They're using something like Shodan, and they're finding these exposed devices on the internet that they can access. They're accessing them, and then they're just deleting the information, and then they're leaving behind a note. And if they do this to 10 or 100 machines, and they get 10% respond, they get a couple $100 each time. Depending on where they're at on the globe, that could be a lot. Okay, the how. Yeah. Maybe I wasn't. I apologize if I wasn't clear about that. Yeah, these NAS devices that we're talking about they were internet facing. So for whatever reason, they were configured to be accessible from the internet, and whether that was just the web portal that allowed cloud access and that wasn't secured correctly, or possibly they were connected directly to an internet facing IP address. That's the article didn't go on to say. But in either case, it really doesn't matter from the perspective of a tool like Shodan. So if you're using some type of tool like Shodan, you can scan a giant swath of the internet and just look for these devices that are able to be accessed from the internet. So for whatever reason, they were accessible from the internet. So yeah, they were external facing for sure, either just by the web portal or by the device itself being accessible. So great question on the how, and apparently I guess I wasn't clear on that. So it's good, Alex. You're here to keep me right on track. I guess second part of that question. Yeah. So no. So they didn't. There was no indication that they breached the internal network. So these were all internet-facing devices. And in the scan that ZDNet did for the article, they didn't breach any networks either. They just did a pure scan of the internet and looked for that web portal being available, the web administrative web interface for these NAS devices to be available. Oops. D-Nice. So what are the threat actors? So then why are the threat actors doing that? What are they gaining if not ransomware? So it's D-Nice. It's a really fine distinction here. When we define these things, ransomware is really these. And it is a bit of a gray area, I would guess. But the ransomware is essentially you're going to pay the money and you're going to get your stuff back. Right, you're gonna get your stuff back, and we know that doesn't always happen in ransomware, but that's the story. In this case, there is no chance of getting it back. So I'm drawing a clear distinction here because this is really a pure exploitation. There is no possibility. It doesn't matter how much money you pay these guys; they are not going to give you your information back. So. You could call it ransomware. I'm sure you could call it ransomware because you are paying a ransom. I'm in describing it. I guess I'm trying to draw a clear distinction. In most ransomware cases, you're going to get your stuff back, right? And we know that's not always the case. So, I think this is. I want to call this more just a pure exploitation because there's no possible chance of getting your stuff back because their attack is not encrypting your data and then telling you, hey, we'll give you the encryption key if you give us the money. So maybe D-Nice, maybe you've talked me into it. I think maybe we can call this ransomware. It is pure exploitation. There is no chance of getting your money back. Alex? Oh, yeah. It definitely keep me on track. If I'm off track and I'm not explaining it well enough, and I know a lot of you guys are following it, but want to make sure that it's clear to anyone listening, and that's a good deal. No, not hacktivists. They're purely after the money, so they're leaving a note behind. You're right, and I think that's why I'm going to agree with you, D-Nice. I'm going to agree with you that this is ransomware. If you look at the article, it is. I mean, there's a distinction we could draw here. They're not encrypting. They're not locking up data. They're just deleting it, and it's not really they're hacktivists. They're extortionists. They're con artists, I guess. The con artists. They're accessing the data, and again, they're not overly technically savvy, so they're accessing the device from the administrative homepage that's available from the internet. They're deleting all the data, and then the only thing they're leaving behind is a note that says, hey, pay us the $275. It didn't say what type of way they were getting paid. I'm sure it's some type of cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, or something else. But then they pay the money, and you don't get anything back. D-Nice, if you look on YouTube, down in the notes, I think on the other sites as well, on Twitch and on Facebook, you should see them there. In the show notes, if you open that area below the video, and you might not be able to do it till the live stream's over, all the links to all the stories are there. So you can go check it out online, go read more about it, and see a copy of the ransom note. But bottom line, I agree with you, D-Nice. I agree with you. We're going to solidly call this ransomware. They're certainly getting a ransom, but they're really exploiting their. Yeah, I'll even post that when you get the 3 thumbs. I'll give you the 3 thumbs up. So terrible things going out. There's always these bad things going on. So again, I say it every morning. If you're that security person, you're for your family, your friends, your organization. You might be. I think Mike Bravo said it yesterday. It sounds like he's like one deep. He's the security person for his organization. If that's you, you gotta fight the good fight every day. You gotta go out there, share with your users, share with your friends this information. Let them know, especially if you got, like think about the articles we talked about this morning. These are the top articles from where we left off yesterday till this morning about 7:15 or so that I saw. If you got friends with kids, make sure that they're looking at this stuff. I'm really interested to see how this Senate bill, this Defense Authorization Act, how it works out. You are there, Mike. Yeah, burnout's prevalent in this biz. I think, and this is my personal view, and I feel it too. When I'm done here, I go do my day job. I do security engineering for a financial company, and it just sometimes at the end of the day you just feel beat down. So I think in the morning, this is my personal view. In the morning when we get together, it's a good time to share like-minded views of things and kind of get yourself amped up for the day. Having security people that are like, yeah, I see this going on. I see this going on and I see why it's bad. But when I take it to work, sometimes by the end of the day, I get just burnt out from this, or burnt out from the 1,000 things you've got to do. Alex saying, a day job. Yeah, a day job. Day job and then all of this. But this is good. This is great stuff. Yeah, Mike, it's just you gotta have some folks that are of the same mindset, that know that security is important, that know we all need to band together and make it better for everyone. We need to share these stories and make our friends, make our coworkers, make our relations more aware of these cyber challenges until they're not as prevalent. I don't know. Is the gym supposed to do all this and we don't have to? I don't. I wish I could quit my day job and just do this. I like doing this. But that's important. That's important stuff I do there too. We specialize. We get so laser focused that we forget there's more than what we do in security. I agree with that 100%. And if I don't know how many people are new to security. There are so many ways to go. You can go into security administration, you can go into access control, you can go into forensics, you can go into security operations center, you can go into engineering, there's so many different directions you can go. You can go into risk management. And when you get into that silo and you're kind of head down, you're doing that part of it all day long. If you're doing risk management, like things like SDLC, risk management framework stuff, you get so focused on just trying to get people to build their systems correctly, you don't pay attention to what's going on the forensic side, or you don't pay attention to what's going on in the security operations side, or maybe you're not looking at what new cloud technologies are coming at us. And it's nice to kind of get a wider view of what's going on in bigger security. So to me, again, I think that helps get that moving along. Still, if you're on Twitch, I'm not sure who you are out there, but I'd love to hear something from you. So one thing I want to share, I always like to share things with you guys in the morning. And if you I got this little doodad down here. This thing's called a Stream Deck, and I don't know if it's good for live broadcasting because I can put the stuff up on the screen just by pushing a button. And I want to show you the new one I got of these, but let's see what's going on in the chat. Well, that's your thought, Mike. So I'm glad I could convey it pretty well. D-Nice, yeah, it's basically when you take the 20 plus NIST control families, you can have a career within a single control. I think you could probably, in some of those controls, you could probably have multiple careers. So you're exactly right. When we talk about the now 20 plus NIST control families, if we think something like the privacy families, those are all privacy, right? That's all. Now we have chief privacy officers in organizations. If you look at the configuration management family, there's a whole bunch of jobs just around configuration management. And we talked about like Ansible yesterday. That's like a great configuration management tool. We look at like awareness and training. Obviously, there's a ton of jobs in that. So yeah, I denies I think we could take, a career field within each of those control families, and maybe in some of them, even more than one career field. Yeah, Alex, AC2, 50 hours. Yeah, AC2 that's where access. That's really, I would say that's the meat of the access control family. AC1 is obviously the policies and procedures, but AC2 is where we define how we're really going to do it. What are the requirements of access control? Yeah, I agree. We could be 50 hours in that by itself. Funny things that folks been the same job, have differing opinions of the intent of the control and its APs. Yeah, we can look at a control, and we can have people doing the job, and see it from two totally different perspectives. A lot of that has to do how we came up through security, and a lot of it has to do with our experience in security. And when I was with the ODNI many years ago, we worked on updating NIST 853, and I think it was going to revision 4. I think it was going to revision 4. And we sat in a room, and it was people from the community, right? There's folks from the intelligence community, folks from DoD, folks from the regular government, the rest of the government, non-Title 50. And then we also had the folks from NIST there. And one session I can always remember it in my mind. We were talking about multi-factor authentication. And we had the guy in the room from NIST that wrote the control on multi-factor authentication, and we were updating it for revision 4 of 853. So the guy goes through and he goes, okay, here's multi-factor authentication, something you know, something you have, something you are, right? Those are the 3 factors of authentication. And then the same guy from NIST goes on to say, if you have 2 passwords and 2 user IDs, we're going to call that multi-factor authentication. And I lost my mind. I said, no, we can't. That's not multi-factor. That's 2 of the same factor, but it's not multi-factor. So that was the debate for half a day, is what do we call multi-factor? And luckily we ended up landing on 2 or more of the 3 categories: something you have, something you know, something you are. But you're right. You're exactly right. Folks within the same job can have differing opinions on the intent of the control. What is the intent of the control? And 853 is a little bit ambiguous by design, because they want it to be implemented. They can't implement at the highest level. We got to get down to the organizational level, to the system level to implement. So the organization has to define what that means. So ambiguity in a control has to be stamped out at the organizational level. So if there is any question on that, you need to have a prime arbitrator for the controls at your organization. And we ended up doing that when we do assessments within the intelligence community. We would have somebody that was defined as, if there's a conflict or questions on the control, this person within the team has ultimate authority to say this is what the control means, which is always a challenge. I have to drink my coffee funny to make sure you guys see the Deadpool amongst it. Yeah, I think that's a great point, and then a bunch of laughter from D-Nice. So I was going to show you the thing that's going on. Oh, let me do the day of our national day. It's funny, we're at the end of the month. More normally these days have a bunch of different weird holidays that I can pick from. June 30th, this is the only thing there is on the list. National Meteor Day. This is National Meteor Watch Day, but National Meteor Day. And in the show notes below, we've got a link to the American Meteor Society that talks about all kinds of, meteors and when you're gonna be able to see them and what's going on and the outlook for the month. They've got the outlook for where you're at. So right now they've got the June 20 to 26 outlook. Okay, we got 27 to July 3rd is the most recent one. So you can go out there, see if there's meteors in your area. I guess go out and watch some meteors. Go out and look at meteors. That's, if anybody needs to tell you what the day is, it's the National Meteor Watch Day. And again, like I was saying, this little doodad here, this makes the stuff show up and go away on the screen. It also switches between the views. So we can go from this view to this view, which is an overhead camera that's like over here. So I can show you the new Stream Deck. So this is the new one. I'm going to show you what this is. And the cool thing about this, it's obviously for streaming, but it's not just for streaming. Each of these buttons can be programmed to be a set of keystrokes from your computer. It can mimic keystrokes. So if you have keystroke combinations that you normally do, I'll use easy, like Control C or Control V. You can assign those to a single button, and each of these buttons are a little tiny LCD screen. So you can put an image on them that represents what that action is. So on mine normally, and I'll switch back to it in a second. On mine normally, when it's the vision, when it's the graphic like the Senate, it'll show a little tiny picture of the Senate. So let's take a look at what comes in this one. Open this thing up. This is the live unboxing that people love to do on the YouTubes. So you look at this. Obviously, your how-to document, what's going on with the Stream Deck, and then the Stream Deck itself. And this one is much, much larger than the other one. Let's get it's nice and protected in there with the Elgato little sticker. And this one's got a magnetic base instead of a little foldable base. But as you can see, it's just they're blank right now. And we plug this thing in, these all come to life, right? So it's got it can come off. This is all magnetic. It's a wee bit nicer than the other one. How does this? I don't see. I wonder if this is Bluetooth. It's got a port pass through. I'll have to check this. This may be. It's got a cord. So I can't. It does have a cord. Looks like USB to USB-C. So there must be a USB-C connector on here somewhere. I just don't know where it is. So this is really cool. I'm going to have to dig into it, check it out a little bit more. This is the Elgato Stream Deck, which, depending on what you're doing, you can assign these keys to all kinds of stuff. So you're a gamer, there's a lot of game controls that are already built into this. But really, any keystroke command you can do. There's a smaller one, which I have the 15 key one. This is the 32 key one, so I can do more stuff with it. But I'll put links to both of those. I'll put my high-speed affiliate links in there in case you guys want to check one of these out or get one of them. And I'll go back to this and I'll show you. Actually, let me go back to the overhead. So, whoops, I don't mean to do trivia. I mean to do the overhead, and I'll show you the smaller one. Smaller one, you can see it shows like, it's kind of hard to see, but that's the little circle like the Senate. So if I push the little button, well, you can't see we're on a different scene, but it can switch us back like this is the main scene. If we push that button, it takes us back to the main scene. So pretty cool. They can do all kinds of stuff. And my lovely bride just got me that one so that we could have more buttons to push in the morning and do more things. So they're cool. From Elgato Stream Decks, they haven't paid me any money. I just think it's a really good product. I like the way they work. And it's just not for streaming. You can do all kinds of, if you do repetitive keystrokes, doing the same thing all the time. Maybe you're in an operations center, or you're moving data around or something like that. And you always do the same thing. You could have like a button for cut, a button for paste, and you just go through and you could use like your mouse and the buttons to do that. Some people are pretty fast on the keyboard. Just depends on how you want to go to it. Obviously, we're a week out from Trivia Night. We moved Trivia Night it's not going to be Wednesday next week because we'll be on the road Wednesday. It's going to be Tuesday. We had a great time. We had a great showing last time. Love to see you Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube. Obviously, if you go to cyber-recon.com/trivia, you can find out all the information. You can download the PDF. We play it on YouTube Live and Socrative. Socrative is the tool we use to collect the answers, to do all that kind of good stuff. I think it's a great time. I always have fun. We drink beers, talk trivia, and it's usually it's always cybersecurity trivia. We'll probably expand a little bit, talk about more IT-specific stuff, talk about some IT-related items. And it's just a fun time. It's time to get together. It takes about an hour, lasts about an hour, 7 to about 7:30. It's a good time. I think it's a good time. A lot of you folks have been out there. Mike Bravo is like the folks. He's the person with the most wins so far. So still the record holder of the most wins. He's not the current king of trivia, but I expect him to get back on the top of the pile fairly soon. So that's it. I mean, that's kind of the rundown of the day. I don't know. What do you guys got going on? What is up? What do you guys think we should do? I guess going forward, we got a ton of stuff. If you haven't seen the schedule, there's a ton of stuff going on the schedule. Trying like crazy to make sure we stay on that schedule. It's an aggressive schedule, but I want to keep everybody moving forward in their respective tracks. And I want to start doing some of this fun stuff. I still got to get this video together, putting together that 12U 19-inch rack for all the equipment that we're building the small office, home office security program with. Everything is in. We got everything in to build this thing. So we're using Ubiquity equipment because I just looked at a bunch of stuff. Their Unify line, it's like Apple to me. It all works together. When you add an access point, you plug it in the network and you adopt it. You want to create virtual LANs or VLANs for different areas that run different access points. It's the simplest system I've seen so far to do that. Hopefully trivia will go back to Wednesday after. Yes, Paul, 100%. I like doing it on Wednesday. I think Wednesday is a good night to do trivia, just because we'll be on the road on Wednesday. It takes it kind of out of the loop, makes it harder to do. So it was either do it on Tuesday or skip a week, which I guess we could have skipped a week and done it the following. But I think just 1 week we'll do it. On the 7th will be a day off, and then we'll go right back to the Wednesday schedule. Every other week on Wednesday right now. Paul, Alex, I think Mike even put comments in. I think every other week's a good tempo to do it. It's not every week. It gives you a little time to get ready for it. And it gets us time to build some swag out. We got some swag coming, like, we got t-shirts and cups coming. That's why some of the stuff hasn't gone out to Mike yet, because we want to make sure he gets one of them their new t-shirts that's coming. So Wednesdays are good. Good, Alex. I appreciate that. What's on the agenda this week? Cross-domain solutions now fits in this massive enclave. Yeah, cross-domain solutions. Those are great devices, and things like some of those diode-based devices could be good in commercial applications. And I'd say a lot of places where there are domains of trust that could really use cross-domain solutions. Maybe not as extensive as some of the stuff that like the NSA puts together, but I mean, I guess a firewall is essentially a cross-domain solution at its weakest definition. Yeah. Yeah, Tuesday next week, then back to Wednesdays. Back to Wednesdays after that. And the nice thing is, if we stay on Wednesdays, we don't have to worry about things like Thanksgiving upsetting, because that's always going to be on a Thursday. Normally holidays are on Mondays. Sometimes we'll have holidays on a Friday like this week. So I think Wednesday's a nice, safe day to do it. Yeah, cross-domain solutions, vastly underrated devices. They're a great way to just lock things down, and you got to keep them separated. I wish we could use copyrighted music. But that's a good place to drop keep them separated. You got to keep them separated. You got to be able to, if you haven't worked with one-way diodes, they're excellent. You can move. Say you have the ability to move data from one domain to the other one, from domain A to domain B, but you can't move data from domain B back to domain A. So you can set up a one-way transfer device, cross-domain solution device, that will allow data to travel up, but nothing to travel down. Technically impossible to go the other direction. And then there's all kinds of other cross-domain solutions that are out there. Mike, if you're working in that field, I can feel your pain. But there's a lot of devices out there that really could be used in a ton of other places. They're not. Yeah, great segue to Bella LaPadula. Yes. Join us more for that in the encryption portion of Security Plus. Bella LaPadula. Yes. Read up, write down, write up, read down. All the good fun stuff. So I guess that takes us to about the end of the morning. Anything else you guys want to bring up, what you want to talk about? I know I got to give you a little bit of a delay because it takes a while to get out to you guys. Still, if you're on Twitch, let me know who you are. I'd love to see who that is out on Twitch. Okay, well we've got by noon today, it'll be hump day. So that's halfway through the week, right? Oh no, I guess the end of the day will be hump day. I can't do math. But by the end of the day, it'll be hump day. We got 3 days to go. Like Mike is going to say, Jim is not good at math. Go get some. Go out there, do good things today. Don't let it get you down. We got to push security forward. That's what we do. We push folks forward. It's a great field to be in, but it is obviously can be taxing from time to time. We got your back. We're here to keep you moving. So be safe out there, and we'll see you tomorrow.